Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Rachel Goldberg and I'm the programs coordinator here at the Manassas Museum. I just want to say thank you all so much for joining us for our last program in this building for a little while. The museum is about to close to undergo renovation and putting an addition on the building as well. So stay tuned. Be sure to check the city's website for updates and whatnot. We'll be reopening in 2023. And we look forward to hosting you all for programs in the coming years and in our brand new exciting gallery space that we're all just so very excited about. So, but without any further ado, today's Stories of Preservation and Progress is a timely topic for the month of December. We're talking about interfaith holidays that come up in the month of December that are celebrated by different faiths throughout December. So I'm not going to take any more of our time. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our moderator, Illana Naylor, to introduce herself as well as the rest of the panel. So thank you all for coming today, and thanks to you all for joining us online.
I want to thank Victoria and Rachel and Nancy and the museum for hosting this program. And without further ado, I will be introducing our panel members in alphabetical order. Rabbi Lizz Goldstein is the rabbi at congregation near Shalom in Woodbridge. She first felt called to the rabbinate in 2004 as a participant in the Union of Reform Judaism Quds Camp. She completed her undergraduate studies in 2010 at Hampshire College in Amherst, Massachusetts, with a concentration in genocide studies. She went on to receive her Master's in Jewish Studies from Gratz College in 2015 and ordination from the Academy of Jewish Religion in 2016. Rabbi Lizz has been involved in many social justice projects, was a Global Justice Fellow with the American Jewish World Service, and is a member of the Torah, the Rabbinic Call for Human Rights, as well as many interfaith efforts here in Prince William County, Manassas and Manassas Park. She is dedicated to a career of drawing from Jewish history and values to work towards social justice and inclusivity. How is the loudness and how is the speed? Is it okay? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Raise your hand if I speak too quickly. To my immediate right, and by the way, all three of these religious leaders are personal friends, and so I'm deeply honored to be here with them. Taliba Hassan is an executive committee member of the Muslim Association of Virginia, which has the largest mosque in Prince William County, Virginia. She chairs the Interfaith Committee that holds several programs each year to educate people about Islam and Muslims. She is Maeve's representative for 2 county interfaith groups, Unity in the Community and Voice. She just ended 8 years on the board of the Muslim Association of Virginia, holding the position of vice president. The latest interfaith project, the Muslim Association partnering with Lutheran Social Services to help set up apartments for the Afghan refugees settling in Prince William County. Earlier this fall, Maeve sent truckloads of clothes, diapers, and all kinds of supplies, baby formulas, to the military bases of Quantico, Fort Pickett, and Fort Lee to the refugees, many arriving with only the clothes on their back, no luggage. Taliba has been a member of Maeve since 1995 and has served in many positions. She was a Sunday school principal for 7 years. She served on the Zakat committee 7 years and recently is serving again. She has gone camping with Girl Scouts as well as helped with programs for badge work. Taliba holds a graduate certificate in Muslim Christian Studies from the Washington Theological Consortium. She is currently enrolled in Hartford Seminary in the Imam and Muslim Community Leadership Certificate Program. She is a retired, in quotes, since she's continuing to work, biology teacher with both undergrad and master's degrees from Howard University. Taliba resides in Dale City with her husband of 45 years. Pastor Mandy Noor, sitting on my far right, has served on the pastoral staff at Manassas Church of the Brethren since 2015. She has served as pastor of Faith Formation, working primarily with our youth ministry, and in 2018 became lead pastor. She has a Master's of Arts in Christian Education from Union Theological Seminary in Richmond, Virginia. And prior to answering the call to pastoral ministry, Mandy was a middle school math teacher here in Prince William County. She is married to Sean North and is the mother of 12-year-old twins, Tyler and Kalia. She's an active member of the Prince William Mother of Multiples Club, a leader in Voice, Virginians, organized in interfaith community engagement here in Prince William County, a member of the Manassas City's Interfaith Council, and helps Unity in the community plan the International Day of Prayer service every September. Can you see a common thread here? We all know each other through Unity and community, and each one is uniquely skilled at being here today. So what I'd like to do is I'm not exactly a kindergarten teacher, but I am a child at heart. And so in order to start the panel, I suggested that the person who has the red circle would be the one to start. And I'm assuming, we have some questions, we can take some from the group, but I'm assuming the easiest way to begin is to speak about your own faith traditions holiday to begin with. Is that acceptable? Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, and peace to you. The prophets, all of them, greeted their communities with the greetings of peace and paradise. And I'm going to say it again, this time in Arabic. Assalamu alaikum. Salam means peace. Alaikum to you. So when someone says Assalamu alaikum, they're giving you the greetings of peace. So as Illana said, I'm Taliba Hassan. I'm a member of the Muslim Association of Virginia. And we manage two masjids, one in Woodbridge called Dar Salam, and the bigger one, which is 2 stories, is the biggest one in Prince William County. There's about 12 masajids. We say masajids is plural, masjid is singular. There are about 12 masajids here in Prince William County, and ours is the largest. Our main floor is our prayer hall, our second floor is our social hall. So, I'm here today, and the school teacher me. I'm going to briefly talk about the holidays that deal with Islam. And Islam is the name of my religion, all right? And people who follow the path of Islam, they're called Muslims. So I'm a Muslim, my religion is Islam. We actually do believe in God. The God that created the heavens and the earth, the master of the day of judgment, the most gracious, the most compassionate. And if you live in Arabic-speaking countries, whether you're a Jewish, Muslim, or Christian, you're going to say God. When you say God, you're going to say Allah. So Allah is not anything like different from the Creator. It's just the Arabic word for God. All right? Our holy book is called the Quran, and it's sitting on a Quran stand. All right? And I'll mention it today because it has to do with our holidays. And so we have 2 holidays. They're called Eids. All right, E-I-D. Eid means reoccurring happiness. So these holidays, you're supposed to be happy, have a good time. And that's what we do on those 2 days. The most important one doesn't get as much press. The most important holiday we have, our number 1 holiday, is about the story of Abraham. Abraham had a son in his old age. So this young man is very precious to the dad. Abraham got a vision where God said, I want you to sacrifice your son. Abraham actually told his son about it, and his son said, Father, I will submit to the will of God, the will of Allah. And so Abraham was about to sacrifice his son. Angel Gabriel came and stopped him and said, "You passed the test, Abraham. God was just testing you. See how well you would obey him." And a lamb was nearby, and the angel said, "Sacrifice a lamb instead." So this ended for Muslims, and I think the Jewish folks, human sacrifice. It stopped with this test of Abraham. So the 11th month, the 10th day of the 11th month, of the lunar month, so let me mention that. Muslims follow a lunar calendar, 29 to 30 days. And so during the 11th month, the month is actually called Hajj, the month of Hajj, 10th day of Hajj. Two things are going on. Muslims are assembling in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, for a pilgrimage. And that pilgrimage is all about Abraham. Everything a pilgrim does is related to Abraham. All right? So this black stone, covered black stone that y'all oftentimes see the pictures, we call it the Kaaba, and it is the house of worship, the first house of worship, built for the worship of one God. And it was built by Abraham and his sons. So, before COVID, more than 2 million people would gather there for Hajj. Now you can go to Mecca any time of the year. That's called the lesser Hajj. It's called Umrah. But the big one that you're required to go to once in your lifetime, if you can afford it, we call it Hajj. And so in Mecca, the pilgrims are marching in from this big plain of Arafat where they slept on the ground the night before and looked at the beautiful stars. They come in and they do various rituals. So they go around the Kaaba, the house, then they go and drink from the well of Zamzam. This story is in the Bible and the Quran. The well of Zamzam is all about, we say Hagar. What do you say, Hagar? H-A-G-E-R. Going back and forth. Okay, so in English it's Hagar. We call her Hajar. And so she went back and forth from two mountains, which are really big. I've been there. They're just big outcrops of rock. From Safa and Marwa, back and forth, searching for water. All right? And when she finally stopped to rest, the water was bubbling up underneath where the baby was laying on the ground. And so that water still exists. It's a natural aquifer, and it supplies that whole area with water. Icy cold water. All right? So, Hajj is all about Abraham. So, that's what the pilgrims are doing. But all the rest around the world, people get up, they shower, they put on new clothes or their best clothes, and they go to a huge field, a huge park, or they go to their local masjid because everybody is encouraged to come out for this celebration. Oftentimes it's in the summertime around here, it's outside where there's a big enough space. Or like at Noor, we have like 3 or 4 prayers. We have cops directing traffic, so many people show up. It's something like the Easter people that show up. You see them, oh, good to see you this year. Hope to see you again next year. Maybe stop in between. So I think Illana said people are bringing symbols. So the symbol I brought was a prayer, because both of our holidays start with a big, huge community prayer. All right, and then people spend the rest of the day visiting their friends and relatives and enjoying each other's company. In some countries, it lasts several days. So that is our biggest and most important holiday, and it's called Eid al-Adha. Our second one is the one that most people hear about, because the month before something was happening. So the next Eid, so as I said before, we call them Eids, and it's a celebration. All right? So the second one comes the 9th, comes really the first day of the 10th month of the lunar calendar. The 9th month before that that whole month, people fast. Now, my holy book, the Holy Quran, which is on the Quran stand there, it's in Arabic and English. So I've been giving out Qurans to the Afghan refugees, and there's Arabic on one side, Dari. Most of them speak Dari on the other side. Ramadan, the Quran says, fasting has been prescribed to you and to those before you, that you might learn restraint. So there are many Muslims who fast every Monday. Some fast every Thursday. Some fast both of those days. And there is some reason. I don't have it on the tip of my tongue at the moment. But during Ramadan, all adults, so we're talking from 16 onward, are expected to do the fast. Our book says if you're home, you're present at home, and you're not sick. So that means if you're traveling or you're sick, you can make those days up. People who are older and have to take medication certain times of the day, they have to check with their doctor. All right. God says He wants to make it easy for us. Now, it's not just not eating. It's not eating, not drinking from before the sun rises to the time the sun sets. During that month, again, the Quran, you're supposed to read, it's divided into 30 parts. You're supposed to read a 30th of it each day. So by the end of the 30 days, you have reread the Holy Quran. Hopefully, it has renewed your compassion, your hope, your desire to do good and treat your fellow man like you want to be treated. So at the end of this month of fasting is when we have the other Eid. And that one's called Eid al-Fitr. Fitr means returning back to the natural way that you've been doing prior to the fast. And so I will close my mouth now.
Cool. Because we have the three Abrahamic traditions, and the similarities exist, but the differences do also. Does anybody want to ask a question of clarification at this time for Taliba?
I can add one more thing. In 2030, which is 9 years from now, Ramadan and the Eid will be in the month of December. So in a person's lifetime, there is fasting during December, and there are Eids during December. And usually it's like 3 years in a row, because each time, so for example, last year, Ramadan was part of, was the celebration was May the 4th, all right? So most of all of April was Ramadan, the fast. But this year, Ramadan starts
May the 3rd.
April the 4th.
Oh.
Okay, so as the years goes on, it's going to keep going. Then it's going to go March, and it will be like start maybe in the middle of March, and then the beginning of March, and then February, and then January. And so in 2030, it's going to be in December. So 2030, 2031, it's going to be in December. So sometime in my lifetime, well, sometime already in my lifetime, back around 1999 and 2000, it was, those years it was in December.
Thank you. Sure. So who among you had the blue triangle?
Does that mean I get to go second?
What's that?
Yes.
Does that mean I get to go second?
It does indeed.
I'm Pastor Mandy Noor from the Manassas Church of the Brethren. I serve as the pastor there, but I'm here to talk about Christianity and the faith traditions that we celebrate this holiday. And just to give you a little bit perspective, if you are Christian, this will make some sense. My dad is Roman Catholic. My mom is Southern Baptist. I went to a United Methodist summer camp as a kid in a Presbyterian youth group. Went to college to Bridgewater, which is affiliated with the Church of the Brethren, where I serve now. But I was really active with the Baptist Student Union. So I feel pretty good about my personal experiences to be able to talk in an ecumenical circle about Christian beliefs and values. Many of us are familiar with Christmas.
holiday as we celebrate in December. And I thought my emphasis today would be around the religious experience of that. Christmas is the day that we celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ, where we believe that God came in the form of a human being to live with us on earth, to be the Emmanuel is the word we use. I need a little part. To be the Emmanuel, to live with us, literally means God with us. And as we prepare to celebrate the birth of Christ, we anticipate that coming through a season of Advent. We are currently in the middle of Advent, which is celebrated the 4 Sundays leading up to Christmas. And one of the ways that we celebrate Advent is lighting the candles of the Advent of the Advent wreath during our worship service. There are 3 purple candles and 1 pink candle. The first Sunday of Advent is the Sunday that we celebrate hope, and we light a purple candle. The second Sunday is when we celebrate peace and the coming of peace, and we light another purple candle. The third Sunday is when we celebrate joy, and we light a pink candle, which is a symbol for rejoicing, and we light a pink candle. And then the fourth Sunday is the Sunday of love, and we light a purple candle again. At our Christmas Eve worship service, we gather together and we light all 4 candles, and then we light a center candle that's typically white, and it is the Christ candle, and that is honoring Christ coming into the world as part of that celebration. In the front of our sanctuary, we have a tree that has decorations on it. It is not a Christmas tree, it's a Chrismon tree. And the ornaments on the tree are typically white and gold, and I have some up here as well. And each of the ornaments is a symbol, a representation of Jesus Christ or the Trinity. God our Creator, Jesus Christ our Redeemer, and the Holy Spirit our Comforter. And so the symbol with the 3 circles is one way to represent that Trinity. And then 12 days after Christmas, we celebrate Epiphany, which, if you're familiar with the story out of the Bible, after Jesus was born in a manger, the story is that a virgin named Mary was visited by an angel who told her that she would be bearing God's son and bring God's son into the world. And she thought, how in the world could this be? I'm a virgin. And God said that Angel Gabriel said that, you will bear a son, the Holy Spirit will overshadow you, you will become pregnant and give birth. And she was at the time engaged to be married to a man named Joseph. An angel visited Joseph in a dream, and as he was trying to figure out what to do, since the woman he was betrothed with was now pregnant, how do you handle that? The angel said, take her as your wife, and all will be well. And they needed to travel for sake of a census to Bethlehem, which was his hometown. And while they were on their way, and once they arrived to Bethlehem, they realized there was no room for them, and she was about ready to give birth. So she gave birth in a stable and laid the baby in a manger. So it's a very modest and humble way to come into the world when you think about the way that God is coming in to the world. And as the story continues, there's believed to be a star that appeared in the sky right above in Bethlehem, right above Bethlehem. And some people who studied the stars saw the star and decided to travel and make their way to Bethlehem to see this Christ child. And so wise people came to travel, and I know we often see these wise ones at the manger scene, but it probably would have taken them about 2 years to get there. And so Jesus was probably a toddler, but 12 days after Christmas, then in the Christian tradition, we celebrate what we call Epiphany, which is the coming of the wise ones to visit the child and to bring gifts of frankincense, gold, and myrrh to celebrate the child's birth. And so those are some of the things that we celebrate. And one other way that we celebrate it with our children is we have an Advent calendar. We see Advent calendars in stores now where you get a piece of chocolate or some other treat, a Lego or something. In our church, we give calendars, and each flat counts the days to Jesus' birth. There are typically 24 or 25 flats from December 1st through December 25th. And when you open the flat, there's actually a Bible verse or a sentence telling the story. So by the time you open them all, it's a way for the children to learn the story of Jesus' birth.
Any comments or questions for Pastor Mandy? All right.
I have one question. Do you think they like the Bible verse better than the chocolate?
You know, the best ones are when you get the Bible verse and the chocolate.
Okay.
Rabbi Lizz?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Rabbi Lizz. So, I brought my menorah, which also has a little dreidel in the front. And I'll explain the story of Hanukkah as the December holiday you're probably most familiar with in Judaism. But I also wanted to acknowledge, as Taliba said, as Islam runs on a lunar calendar, Judaism also runs on a lunar calendar, although we have solar leap years. So, although each month, starts with a new moon and runs that 29 days-ish, until the next new moon, it's a very confusing cycle. It's not every 4 years, but sometimes every other, sometimes every third year, there is a whole leap month, so that the whole calendar sort of resets, and our holidays stay around the correct season. So this year, Hanukkah was very early. Our leap month is in February, March of 2022. So next year, everything will be a little later. Hanukkah will coincide more closely with Christmas. This year, the first candle of Hanukkah was the Sunday after Thanksgiving. So Hanukkah's long over now. And that's the reason for that. So it's always in this time of year, but it's not always necessarily fully in December. We do have another holiday this time of year that is pretty much always in December. As I said, this year's an early year in how the holidays fall with the Gregorian calendar, and just yesterday was our fast day that falls in December. It's called the 10th of Tedx, which is, Asara B'Tevet is literally the 10th day of the month of Tedx, which is what falls around December into January. And it is a fast day, so there's not a lot of festivity around it, but it is a holy day on our calendar that also falls in December. And so I wanted to mention that too, that it's not just the holidays that you know of. There are other things that go on in our calendar as well this time of year. It commemorates when the walls of Jerusalem were breached by Nebuchadnezzar. I think it's kind of funny that, funny is maybe not the right word, but interesting that both the first and second temple are said to have been destroyed on the 9th of Av, which falls around July, August. So that's a full fast day. That 9th of Av, around August, is a 25-hour fast. We have two minor fasts that lead up to it that commemorate when the Babylonians first and then the Romans second breached the walls of Jerusalem before they got to the temples of their time. The Romans took 3 weeks. So the first fast, the sun up to sundown fast, is only 3 weeks before the 9th of Av to commemorate when the Romans Jerusalem and the temple. Nebuchadnezzar's father died while he was sieging Jerusalem, so he had to go back to Babylon and be have his coronation before he came back. So it took 18 months. So yesterday was our fast day for when he breached the walls, and then he doesn't finish the job until next August. Or the August after that, I guess, too. So that's Asura Tedx. That's our big holiday of December this year, because Hanukkah's already over. But anyway, the much more fun holiday is Hanukkah. I've brought my menorah here. A Hanukkah Menorah has 9 candle spats. A traditional menorah only has 7. A menorah with 7 arms stood in the temple in Jerusalem, in both of them, before the Romans and the Babylonians destroyed them. And before that, even the Torah tells us that there was one in the Mishkan, the tabernacle, that traveled with the Israelites through the desert for 40 years. And it said very explicitly 7 arms of burning oil, and that they should never go out. So the story of Hanukkah takes place during the Second Temple, during the Greek is a very loose word, but the Hellenistic, Syrian, Macedonian, it's the empire controlled by Alexander, but they came in through Syria and they worshipped Zeus. So whatever qualifier you want to use there, they had taken over the land and the temple. It wasn't destroyed. This sometimes trips up my students when we're trying to go through history. It's not the same as when the Romans and the Babylonians leveled it. The Macedonian, Syrian Greeks took over the temple, and they left all of its structures standing, but they were sacrificing to Zeus instead of to God. They were sacrificing things that aren't necessarily prescribed sacrifices. In Judaism or ancient Judaism, the sacrifices in the temple would have only been from kosher animals or a mixture of grain, meal, and oil. The Greeks were sacrificing pigs and God knows what else, not kosher. So after a bloody war that not only was fought between the Jews and the Greeks, but also there was a lot of infighting between Jews who saw the Greeks as modernity and they wanted to be Hellenized, versus the Jews who felt that this was sacrilege and felt very strongly about ridding their land of anything resembling an idol or idol worship or that sort of thing. So it was a difficult time in the history of the land. But eventually the religious Jews, known as the Hasmoneans or the Maccabees, won. That's sort of where the book of Maccabees ends, by the way, is that they won. That's the miracle of the military success of this little ragtag band of Jews over the great armies of Alexander the Great. The rest of the book of Maccabees, the 3rd and 4th books, which are not in our Bible even, so I haven't read them very close, like I've read summaries, I don't know, they're apocrypha to us, but they go on to then tell the rest of the history of the Hasmonean dynasty. They jump around in history a bit, they don't follow the Maccabees very closely, but the story of Hanukkah, as it's written in the historical records, ends with the victory of the Maccabees and the rededication of the temple, cleaning the temple up. The earliest rabbis, around the 1st century CE, add a piece of more sort of supernatural, godly miracle to the story, and that's where our Hanukkah comes in. They say that when the Maccabees re-entered the temple and cleaned it up and rededicated it, they found that there was only enough oil left to fill the 7 branches of the menorah, enough for it to burn one night. But it's not supposed to ever go out. That's in the Torah. And miraculously, that oil stuck through and kept burning for 8 days, which was enough time for them to press more olives into oil and refill the menorah so that it never lost its light. So that's why Hanukkah is 8 nights, and we light another candle each night. So the first night we light 1 candle, the second night we light 2 candles, and so on. And the one in the middle, the raised, it's not always in the middle. This is a very traditional looking model, but they come in all designs. But there's always one that's higher than the others. That's called shamash, or the helper candle, and it's used to light the other candles, because the thing with ritual candles, both for Hanukkah and Shabbat, is that they're meant to symbolize the warmth and light of the holiday. They are not meant to do any of the work that fire normally does for us. You're not supposed to use the light to read by or do any work, or to light other fires. So you need that helper candle that's not a ritual candle, so that you can light the ritual candles, and so that, if you are using the light of the menorah to do other things, fine, you can say, well, I'm just using the light of the shamash, and get around that Jewish law loophole. And then there's also donuts on the table you may have seen. So any fried food really is a traditional cuisine of Hanukkah because of the oil element. So anything fried in oil is a Hanukkah food. But the 2 most traditional foods in Israel and the US are fried donuts, especially jelly donuts. But apparently Dunkin' Donuts doesn't sell jelly donut holes anymore. But that's the big thing in Israel this time of year. Every pastry shop is selling jelly donuts and latkes, which are a potato pancake deep fried in oil. So there's no food in the gallery, but on our way out, I hope you will grab a donut and take a little piece of Hanukkah sweetness with you.
Do we have any observations or some clarification for Rabbi Lizz?
I have a question, and it's not necessarily religious, it's more historical. Do you know the dates of and I should probably know this, the dates from the first temple and the second temple? I'm just kind of curious about that.
Yeah, roughly. So the 300 something BCE is, what? Going back a little further, 500 something BCE is when the first temple is destroyed. 300 something is when it's rebuilt. And then 70 CE is when the Romans destroyed the second temple. So the Maccabees story is around 200.
July, August are the hardest months to fast in because people do get thirsty. But we're not supposed to drink any water during the fast. Whereas the rabbi talked about a 24 or 25 hour fast. That's day and night. But we just do from just before the sun comes up to just when the sun sets. So it's not 24 hours. Maybe the longest day might be 14 hours.
It's okay, I want to piggyback on that. My son has a really good friend who's a neighbor, and his family's from Morocco, so they were spending their summers in Morocco when Ramadan was happening. And because of the time change between the 2 countries, my son and he were FaceTime, and it would be the middle of the night over there, and they were all up, and he was showing Tyler all the cool things they were doing, and it was the middle of the day for us. It was okay for Tyler to be up with his friend, but I think that was allowed us as our family to kind of learn how Ramadan is celebrated differently in predominantly Muslim countries. And the food is really good too, because we get the
Yeah,
benefit.
I like Moroccan food. I like Mediterranean food. I don't like spicy food. Or spicy food doesn't like me. Tastes good going down, but it doesn't agree with my gallbladder.
Tina, wait 1 minute and I'll bring you in. Yes, sir.
Okay, at Christmas time, Christians have a Christmas tree. I heard that the Jews, under pressure from the kids have like a Hanukkah bush and presents. The Muslim children in this country, they pressured their parents to go along with the tree with decorations and presents and such and such?
No, not necessarily trees and things, but people who have recently, their first or second generation from a country that's majority Muslim, whatever the traditions were, so oftentimes, like you say, if people are up at night, well then you need lights. And I was surprised one time I visited a friend their family was Pakistani, and I arrived at their front door, and it was during Ramadan, and they had lights, like Christmas lights, on their trees, not on their trees, but their bushes in front of their door. And I'm like, what? But this is something, and inside the house they'll decorate with banners and things for the kids. So it depends upon what country people are from, what kind of tradition they brought from their country. But for me, no, my kids never got a Christmas tree. All right? No lights on the outside or anything.
But you yourself were raised Catholic in Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, my parents had a Christmas tree, but, you know, my two kids were raised from birth Muslim, and they never got a Christmas tree. And so on Eids, both Eids, you do give your kids and your family presents. For my extended family, I just take them to a restaurant for dinner. All right. For my immediate family, my kids, they always got, so the tradition was, they got 3 presents. They got a new set of clothes, they got something that was educational, and they got one toy or something they wanted. So my fridge, you put your list up on the fridge, and whatever, you can write as many things you want on that list, but you're only going to get one of them. So, and they were there waiting for them on the kitchen table when they come down on the day of Eid. And if it was clothes, you know, they had the choice to either wear the new clothes or, you know, wear what they had decided to wear. So it depends upon the family and where they came.
Is this a follow-up question?
Well, it's not a question, huh?
Yeah, go ahead, go for it. I'm just going to bring in Tina in a minute, yeah.
Okay, Christians in this country, there's various Protestant churches, different beliefs, Catholics and such. Jews have, there's several different groups of them. There's some really strict Jewish folks, and I forget the terminology for the different groups. Now, in America, the Muslims that are here are different groups, like over in Iraq and stuff are here, they've got the Shiites and some of the other groups. Are all the Muslims considered like the same, and the mosques the same?
In Prince William County, we do have a mosque that's a Shia mosque, okay? But I have friends from Iraq and other countries that have both Sunni and Shia. It's just a different school of thought. We all more or less believe, okay, so no matter if you're a Muslim, one, you believe that there's only one God, Allah. You believe that you should pray to God 5 times a day, formal prayers, that you should give in charity, that you should fast during the month of Ramadan, and you make Hajj at least once in your lifetime. So, saying that, that's what all Muslims believe. Now, the Sunnis, the main difference between Sunnis and Shia, which really doesn't affect their everyday life in a lot of these countries, like in Iraq. You know, the Sunnis and Shia, they live next door to each other. Their kids play with each other, all right? It's only, they marry each other, all right? It's only people who want to divide folks that stir up Shia Sunni. But Sunnis, it came back when the Prophet passed, the community elected Abu Bakr to be the next leader, what they call a caliph. All right. Then there were people who thought his relatives, which was Hussein and Ali, were his nephews. One of them should have been the leader. So we're talking about, are we going to democratically elect a leader, or are we going to go the king-queen route? And if you are the son of the last leader, then you get to be the next leader. So that's the main difference between the two of them. It started way back then of who gets to lead.
The right of succession.
And the Sunnis are dominant. We elect leaders, okay? Except Saudi is an exception. They're Sunni, but you know, if you're the son's king, I mean, if you're the son of the king, so they have that king thing, but they're Sunni. But really, most of the world, it's all about consultation. You consult with each other, and the group comes up with a solution. Also, in Islam, you'll find that we're very decentralized. All right, so I'm going to take Catholics for example, and even the Baptists and a lot of the Christian groups. The Catholics, they have this Pope in Rome. The Baptists, they have the Baptist board or leadership. The Presbyterians, they have a group. There's bishops. All right, so there's a hierarchy. And oftentimes, I know for the Catholics, you know, you put money in your local church, but there's a church envelope for, you know, that goes to the archdiocese, and there's another envelope where it goes to the Pope, etc.
She was raised Catholic, and
Yeah.
you see.
So there's a hierarchy. In Islam, there's at least around a dozen masjids here in Prince William County, and they're all run differently. Okay, so there's a Virginia conference of Muslim organizations, so we join together. We have different policies and rules, regulations, and things like that. But we come together as an association to promote anything that is of value and concern of all Muslims in the area. But there is no hierarchy in Islam. So when you go visit different countries, well, I take that back. If you go to a country that says, oh, we're Muslim, so I'll take Turkey, because we have an imam who's from Turkey. The government, if it's considered a Muslim government, then the government trains the imams who are the leaders, okay? And the government puts them in positions and pays them, all right? That doesn't, but that's, so in Saudi it's like that too. Saudi, they train their imams, they put them in, send them off to, and they pay them. But in essence, if you go to other countries where the government doesn't rule like that, then you have, but even in those countries, you're going to find masjids that are totally independent of the government. They have nothing to do with the government has no control over them. So in America, this is how it is, because we're, you know, separate church and state. And so it's easy for Muslims in the sense that people can join together. So I belong to the Muslim Association of Virginia, which means it's an association of people, and we started a couple of masjids. And there's different associations around. So, but there's no head. Now, one thing in America, we do have a fiqh council, and the fiqh deals with what are the rules and regulations in Islam. And so there is a council, and these people there are considered scholars, and they're from different parts of the country. And if there's a big question, it can go to the fiqh council, and the fiqh council can